fastest way to do this. I lost my loop because remember last time I used it as my knot. So I'll make another knot. I could probably bury it, but I'll trim it off. Now, here's the nifty thing. We've got to go through and catch these anyway to get the effect that we want. So, while I have it down there, why don't I sew in a button? And I have some embellishments here. I know for anybody with OCD that probably just made them go, ah! But I like to look at stuff. What have I got here? Bead would be nice too, but I think since it's a sewing thing, I will find a little button that looks cute. A little red button. Oh, a little orange one. There we go. A little orange button coming right up. Catch that right on the point down here. Now, this is one of those things where this pincushion is just pretty much an empty slate. A blank slate for you. That's what I get for using old thread. You could use a little scrap of lace. You could use a silk flower that's left over from some other project. You can bunch up ribbon, do decorative ribbon work. There's just a whole bunch of different things that could be used on here. Even if you only had one of something, this is the place to use it. You could put a couple little bells on there. Just sky's the limit. Especially you can imagine if you had dyed this black, anything you wanted to put on it, would just add to it. I'm going to make a couple little, just do my button that way. Cut my thread. If you want, you can just travel from one embellishment to another inside the pincushion too. It won't make any difference when you start putting your pins and needles into it. Okay, I didn't trim the knot on that one, so went right on through. Tuck the thread under. But you can imagine, once you got these washed and felted, and you just use the table for a few minutes to cut them out, from that point on, you could just sit on your couch and do this part. Take it with you to a friend's house and sit and talk and work on it. At this point, it's just maneuverable as knitting. Okay, 2 threads through the button. And we'll tie it off. And again, whatever sewing skills you have, I've even taught this to kids, and worst case scenario, there's a couple threads hanging out, and we just knotted them on the surface and sunk them in with the needle. It worked out fine. And they really feel like they made something, because most of the time as a kid, everything you make is kind of two-dimensional. So when you can teach them how to make something that gets stuffed, or something, three-dimensional, a hat, they get a big kick out of that because they're, it's special for them. All right, pin under. Ah, there goes my furnace. Feels damp here today. It's about 38 degrees, but it's just somehow, I don't know, it just gets into your bones today. I love my big warehouse. Normally I use it for woodworking, but I wanted to have a whole bunch of real quick and easy streams up, and the husband's going to convert them all over and put them up on our YouTube channel we started. There's the fastest way I could think of to have a whole bunch of easy projects. And if people tell me they're too easy, it's like, oh, don't worry, I can make them harder. One of my complaints about people who are, they're interested and they want to learn some of these skills. But, if you want to make a pillowcase at our local Joann Fabrics, it's $35. I don't know if that even includes your fabric for the pillowcase, and people pay it. I don't think they're making something that they're thrilled about. But I think that's kind of sad. I was blessed by having a grandmother and a great grandmother that I had a lot of sewing lessons from them. And we didn't learn to sew because, gosh, that would be a nice way to spend an evening. We learned to sew because it was just necessary for survival. You sewed horse blankets and made leather, and we did our own canned goods. Farm was pretty self-sufficient. Farm families, at a fairly early age, you're given chores. You have things that you are responsible for. They don't get done. Somebody comes and says, "Hey, why didn't you do your work?" Everybody's expected to have their own responsibilities, and it causes you to have a sense of belonging that's much deeper than I think a lot of city kids get. If you have a pony and you don't feed that pony doesn't eat. And after a couple times of you not feeding the pony or not taking care of it or not bringing it in at night, you'll go out there and that pony won't be there because your dad or grandpa will have sold it. Because it's just, you learn real quick, animals are not things. And if you have responsibility for an animal, it's up to you to make sure it gets fed and watered and it's kept safe. And you tend to carry that into the rest of your life, So now that I pinned those few back with the little buttons, see, now you can see that more of that color from the other layer is eating out. I could do it one more time, but I think it's kind of alright the way it is. So now I want to get rid of a little bit of this extra fuzz. I'm not sure if it's showing up on the camera, but it's bothering me. I might even get a little razor out and attack it with that. Anything will work. Some people like to have an emery attached to their pincushion to clean their needles on. If you hear a car engine racing, my warehouse is in this wonderful building. It has several artists in it, and the one that works on cars, builds cars for the Wounded Warrior Project. He's on the other side of my back wall. The guy on that side of me, his name is Matt, and he makes soaps and lotions, candles, all kinds of things like that. Drop ships them off of Amazon. And I'm a woodworker, so mostly, believe it or not, most of my market is making knife handles. Kind of a niche market, and I really like it because it combines my art making with, a real simple kind of woodworking. I'm not, doing joinery. I'm not, And then people who have their grandfather's shotgun or something, and the wood's all rotting away or whatever. I redo. The local gunsmiths will call me up, and I'll go over and pick up gun stocks and refinish those. And I like doing that work. Somebody gave me one once. They gave me a brand new piece that was out of a different wood than the other piece that was old, and I had to match the stains on the two of them. And having an art background, it was no problem, and they were really impressed. And everything you learn, eventually, someday, it comes in handy for something maybe you didn't expect. So all those years of teaching color theory, I just took a look at it and said, oh, I need some ochre, and I need some yellow, and I need some little bit of brown in there, and some mahogany, and mixed it up and had it on the first try. So I do that for custom work for people. Somebody's got me started building one of those little library houses because they found out they cost $600. I looked at it and said, what? So I'm going to be streaming making one of those pretty soon. And I'll put those on my website. But my website is mostly, wood for knife handles and wood for displays. People who do turn duck calls and stuff. It's a very niche market, but I like pleasing my customers. They can call me at 10 o'clock at night. It has to go out the next day. It'll go out the next day. Custom orders, I tend to drag myself on a little bit more. Sometimes, if I wait a little longer, I end up making a much better product, and people still seem to think I got it to them in a timely fashion. So there's our first one. I like this little bit of color popping up in the middle. Isn't that pretty? I'll put a couple pins in it so you can enjoy it. Ta-da! So there's one. And now we'll try another type. Here is a coat. See if I can get it into the picture for you so you can see it. You've probably seen this kind of thing before. Coat, giant. Look at these big, giant, ugly buttons. Of course, I'll save those. They'll be good for something. When I cut the buttons off of a coat like this, and I'm going to recycle the fabric, I leave a big hole where that button was. Because I find it very frustrating to be sewing the fabric later and then find 5 or 6 tiny, tiny little holes and maybe a weakness in the fabric. So when I cut them out, I cut a big hole. I'm not going to miss it. But this coat was a Landsberg, Washington, D.C., 100% wool, caress. It's got some beautiful silk labels. They're definitely vintage labels. And I'm just going to start by, got to have good scissors for this kind of stuff. I love gingers. I use these great big dressmaker gingers. And I have an 11-inch pair too for when I'm doing just a lot of fabric. Now when you have this little stuff like this, usually the cuff is where the stains are, so you don't want to use that. There's a lot of extra seams and work in here. Previous dressmaking details. This is still sewn on. What you can do with this, the best use I've found, hang on to it, and then when you've got a bag full of them, stuff a little pillow. I used to stuff pillows and give them away to older people who would be in their car a lot, and I'd make them a special one just for going behind their neck, or one for putting underneath their feet so their feet didn't get cold. You could stuff them and use them for pet pillows, because you just use it when the pillow gets stained or whatever. You're going to throw it away in your house, so just go ahead and toss it. So I save all the stuff like that. Hooks, snaps, zipper pulls, I save everything. Even the little other buttons that are on the inside, I save those. But what we want, this has been washed and dried in the dryer already. What we want out of this is we want a long piece that we can roll up into a tube like we did that other one. So, get ready for a good noise. Here we go. Now I usually try to save the piece up the middle of the back for something else, something I need a big piece for. There we go. We got our little piece. I'm actually just going to cut these threads. I'll probably use this part. Even after washing, you can see that there's fuzz and stuff that's gotten down here over the years. This would have been an ideal candidate for dyeing in, because most of these little flaws, if I dyed this, just lay them all down into a hot bath and then pour the different dyes over it. White is great for that. And we've still got this little curved place here and a seam. I'm just going to trim that off, but you know what? The curve is actually a pretty good shape. that can be our end. And again, washed and dried, so there's nothing going to happen. This isn't going to unravel.